The first slide, which is talking to Resolution 140 of 2022, relating to financial sustainability. The responses there, the department's response is that the turnaround strategies that have been implemented were hampered greatly by the challenges that are relating to budget cuts. So what we have done as the department, we have presented the impact to different structures to actually highlight what we can do and what the department has done in order to ensure this financial sustainability. We have found that the only solution would be to reduce the over expenditure by the reduction in the personal expenditure, which we have alluded to that it was not approved, as all avenues to reduce the goods and services transfers and capital has been exhausted. We are actually very lean on the funds there. So without this funding, the financial sustainability of the department is actually quite at a dire situation, which is why we are looking at the structures that be to allow us to access additional funding. Resolution 141 of 2022 is talking to staff debt. Members requested the age analysis which we have presented. The age analysis for debts that occurred within the last 12 months amount to 47,395,000. 1 to 3 years, it's 106,583,000. What we want to also highlight is that over 3 years, with this is prescribed debt, which we cannot recover, it's 369,499,000, which actually amounts for the 71% of the total staff debt. What we can do is to apply for this to be written off, but as part of a government accounting, when you write off a debt, you actually must have cash available to write it off, which is why we haven't been able to reduce that amount significantly. Where the total amount that is still recoverable is 153 million, which the department is vigorously following up on that recovery. The reasons for the failure to implement staff debts, we have indicated it's the reluctance of employees to acknowledge the debt, which makes deductions from person difficult. But we have established a task team to look at the policies, at the policy change to actually allow us to allow staff, the district, to follow up on those that have not acknowledged the debt. The steps that we have taken to implement consequence management, we've issued a consequence management plan, which we have attached in Annex 1, that's to all the districts to make sure that we follow this up on a monthly basis on what is happening, especially on the new debt. But we have seen a good response, especially from the district on the late terminations. Most of them, as we are following up on a monthly basis, have come back with zero debts as a result of termination. So the strategies that we are implementing are actually starting to be fruitful. This is going to continue as we look at the cases, at each case by case, to see what the issues around the new debts. The implementation of the plan we've started. We're showing on slide 9 where no recoveries implemented. We are sending out warning letters, and we put a deadline of 18 February 2023 for districts to come back and advise on why these debts have actually not been recovered. We are seeing that at the end of January, a lot of employees have actually started paying back those debts. And where we're still struggling, say by the 31st of March, all debts should be recovered. or the recovery should have started on all those debts. If it has not happened by the 31st of March, we're going to be submitting to the Labor Relations to follow up those cases, of which by the end of April, those cases must all be closed. The last one is on the steps taken as well to fully recover. We're still citing that the lack of staff capacity. We've got districts that are barely functional because of the staff that are in the district and the workload that is on them in the districts. Staff capacity. Thank you. There's staff issues which the department is following up by head office supporting those districts and providing resources to go to the district and assist the district. And one other issue that has come up is where staff members in the district are being threatened by the employees who are owing, preventing them from deducting, which we are saying then with the cases where staff are being threatened, then those cases will be moved to head office so that the implementation can be done there. Resolution 142 of 2022, which relates to public ordinary schools, learners benefiting from the school nutrition. The meeting was held between DBE and SNP, Auditor General in the DPME, which resulted in the amendment of the APP. After all the discussions, there was agreement by the NSNP responsibility managers on how we are going to address the recommendations of the AG, which was concluded by amending the APP. Resolution 143, which is relating the school learner transport, the intervention that have been implemented there. We have elaborated on what the task team has done thus far, which has been to establish the scope of technical work required. The user specified requirement has been finalized. The training, we have agreed that the training must be conducted, which had started on the 20th of September, where workshop for the benefiting schools were done. And in order to actually make sure that we've captured all the learners, the hard copy of learner transport data was submitted to EMIS for capturing electronically. So this one is actually being implemented, and we have agreed, BE has also agreed, which was not endorsed, which was endorsed. The endorsement was the change of the wording that had to be incorporated in the APP plan 23-24, which is due in April 2023. The resolution 4, which relates to the expenditure management in terms of unauthorized expenditure of 719 million. This unauthorized expenditure is due to the budget cuts, and it relates mainly to the personal expenditure, which we've indicated that the budget establishment, the total establishment is actually not funded. Therefore, we are going to see this unauthorized expenditure as there are approximately 6,112 staff posts that are unfunded. The findings, the recommendation of completed investigation. The investigations are not performed in this one because we understand where the unauthorized expenditure is coming from. And the outcome of condonement will be waiting for the decision of Scopa on the condonement of the unauthorized amount. That one is relating to the 712 for authorized expenditure for 2022. The unauthorized expenditure of 26 million was relating more. Oh, sorry, the resolution 145 is for irregular expenditure of 26 million. The committee wanted to know the measures that have been implemented and the progress that have been made in the determination test. This irregular expenditure was mainly related to the measures have been taken at the bid adjudication committee level, where the BECs are doing the validation and the verification checks before they submit to the BAC to make sure that local content has been taken into consideration. And also the nominations committee has also the responsibility to check and confirm right at the beginning, which includes the quotations at the stage where they are being sourced. The progress on the determination testing for 2021, we have completed the test. We have now put the implementation of consequence management to the 31st of March 2023, 30th June 2023, and 30th September. So as the cases are coming in and are being finalized, we are going to be implementing the consequence management, and the recommendations at the same time be put to Treasury for condonement of those that we are requesting condonement for. The resolution 145, it's irregular expenditure for 21-22, which is the 26 million also. We are presenting the progress made for the determination testing. What we are busy with currently is the step taken to rectify the matter, which is the work in progress. We have attached an annexure identifying where this irregular expenditure is actually emanating from, so that we can actually put internal control measures to make sure that it does not happen again. The prior years, prior to 2020 irregular expenditure, the progress there, we have analyzed the amounts as per the total annual financial statement. It was sitting at 8 billion. 3 billion of that was condoned, and the balance was 5.1 billion. 3.1 billion relates to NSNP. The challenge that we are currently having, we are in a 90% complete status. The challenges that we are having there is the lack of documentation to actually support the evidence, provide evidence of what happened in those cases. But we are making progress, and it will all be finalized by the 31st of March. We've got a team that is assisting us from Treasury to make sure that these are all finalized and submitted for condonation. The expenditure relate 146, resolution 146, which talks to irregular expenditure failure to make payments within 30 days. I think we have highlighted at the end the issues that cash blocking is, how it's affecting the department. And with our own systems, we have put a checklist, checkpoints where we make sure that the correct dates on the supply invoice is put into the system. They sign and stamp the invoice on time. The capturing of the EF73, and we review the bus reports payment monthly to make sure that all the invoices are captured on time and all the supporting documentation is available in the system. We must highlight in this one that when it's captured in the system and it's not paid to the suppliers within 30 days, this is what raising the issue because of the cash flow challenges that we are experiencing when Treasury provides 4.8 billion on average a month. 4.2 billion goes to salaries, and the rest must be distributed in everything else. So we are finding ourselves in a very tight corner when we must pay all the suppliers and do the transfers and pay all the contracts at the same time. So that is the challenge. But in terms of the systems, to make sure that we pay on time, the department has implemented those controls. Resolution 147 is the consequence management on cases of fraud that is not reported. We've looked at this one, and the cases that were not reported on the fraud were cases that have internal processes pending. So we have not finalized the internal disciplinary action. So we cannot run concurrently a criminal case and a disciplinary hearing in case there are appeals. So with these ones, only the cases where they have not been provided, they have not completed, the internal cases have not been reported to the SAPS. Resolution 148, it's salary payments to persons no longer in the employ of the department. The effectiveness of the measure that we put in place, this one relates to the staff debts as well. We're seeing that from the second quarter to the third quarter, there's been a difference, a decrease from 23 million to 16 million, which is showing that whatever we have put in place is starting to bear fruit. It's still cases that we don't want to see, but some of them relate to cases where there's leave without pay, where employees were waiting, were on sick leave, and then they have to come back into the system, and then we have to raise those debts. As I've also indicated, terminations of employees, late terminations, we have seen districts coming back with zero cases of debt in terms of terminations. The one other that is actually giving an increase to this one is the PIEI terminations, where we've got contracts that are signed with the PIEIs and there are no shows. So when payment is being done, since we're paying through a personal system, then we have to recover those from those employees that did not show. The next one is the reason for failure to recover the staff debts. I think we've highlighted in that one. The acknowledgement of debts, the staff capacity, and the threats that staff sometimes experience. We've also dealt with the steps taken with the consequence management, which we've highlighted a plan that we're going to be deploying to make sure that staff officials who are responsible for the staff's debt are actually brought to book. Failure to recover such staff debts. We've also mentioned those reasons, which we are aggressively following up and providing assistance, especially to the districts. And the outcome of measures put in place to prevent the future occurrence, we have proposed the appointment of a full-time project manager to monitor the effectiveness and the efficiency of the system, as we are monitoring these data on a monthly basis and checking where exactly these data are coming from. We are reviewing, we're in the process of reviewing the debt management policy. In terms of employment of temporary educators, what we have done, we have implemented an e-submission system where the terminations can be reported on a turnaround time of 24 hours to head office so that it can be captured immediately. Also, the unclaimed pension benefits is being pursued vigorously with our legal team to make sure that we recover. An SLA has also been entered into between the state attorneys to manage the referral of debt so that we can make sure that even debt that has been referred does not prescribe, it is followed up timelessly. Resolution 149 talks to the timeless deduction of PAYE to SARS. The major contributor of this one is the appointment of educators. Where there's a delay with the appointment, we have to pay the staff members and deduct the tax retrospectively. So there's an electronic system also that has been implemented to speed up the appointment process of the educators, the newly appointed educators, and also the substitutes. The recovery of the interest is expected to be done after the audit has been finalized. The SARS has already indicated that they will actually refund this amount of 6 million to the department. The assessment, I think we've touched on the penalties. As a result of those internal processes, the department is actually pursuing with the investigators that there were no investigations that were conducted because these were cases where educators were appointed late. The measures implemented to address this finding, we have indicated it's the implementation of the e-submission to reduce and prevent late submissions. And the principals of the schools, they now are able to upload the documents on the systems on a real-time basis, and they can actually be uploaded on PESA, reducing the delays of appointments and late terminations. The outcome of the engagement with SARS, we have had quite a good engagement with SARS, with have indicated that the penalties are going to be credited 6.75 million, but also we have appointed a legal representative for the department to actually fight this case. During our discussions, SARS has indicated that they'd like us to settle the matter out of court. They've opened the communication lines again for us to engage them. The last meeting, which was held virtually, was on the 20th of January. So it's an ongoing process where SARS is requested documentation and we are submitting. It looks like we are going to have a fruitful outcome, from these penalties, where the penalties may be reversed. Forensic investigation, the resolution 150, we have presented of the allegation in terms of an annexure and which is the liaison with the Office of the Premier Forensic Department, the state prosecutors on a monthly basis before we go to court, and the investigation officers, we engage with them on a monthly basis on the status of these cases. Resolution 141 relates to internal investigations. We were citing that for this quarter, we had 85 cases that have been referred. These ones are slow moving as a result of the staff capacity issues that we are experiencing there. But the cases that are in progress are 11, and the cases that have been completed, we've completed 13. There are pending disciplinary hearing as there's 6, and there are pending recoveries which have not prescribed. It's 21. We are also making presentations to governing bodies to make sure that they pursue these claims, as they have the right also to pursue these claims civilly. Cases pending criminal or court, it's 16, and the cases that have been closed, it's 18. Regarding the SIU investigation, we have attached Annexure 2 with the nature of allegations and the steps taken to implement the recommendation of the SIU. Filling of critical post, which is Resolution 217. The Treasury has allowed us and approved filling of 15 posts, with 10 which were senior management services, 4 which are middle management, and 1 junior manager. These posts are in progress of being implemented. Advertisement have gone out, and we're in the process of shortlisting. Unfortunately, there's one category where we could not get approval, which we feel it's very critical that we get approval for. It's for special schools. We are pursuing the department treasury to actually assist us in getting those approved as well. Page 33 is it's those 15 posts that have been advertised and the progress where they are, which most of them have closed on the 10th of February, and we are looking at starting with the interviews for that. Compliance with HR matters. The department is presenting that we have maintained 100% record on all except for one, which is the financial disclosure for a staff member that is currently on suspension. But 100% on performance agreement, security vetting, and the submission of financial disclosures have been maintained. SIU investigations, we have received the order that has been processed. It's waiting for the original invoices, and then it's going to pay it from the system. Resolution 220, which is human resources management vacancies in senior level. We have provided the list of 15 posts that have been advertised and are awaiting the interview process. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. Colleagues, the floor is now open to you for your comments, discussion, etc. Show of hands, please. Honorable Rogers. Honorable Kaula. Honorable Nkosi. Okay, in that order, please. Oh, sorry, Honorable Kwele, welcome. I last saw you featuring online. You were a movie star. But okay. You will come after Honorable Nkosi.
Indeed, Chair, she's looking like a movie star. I like the new look. Well done. Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the presentation. I must say, I don't know if it's just that I've had a long day, but I'm quite impressed with what's being presented here. It's certainly a step in the right direction. And of course, the most important thing is the proof is in the pudding. You know, you can look at the dessert, it looks very nice. I just don't want it to taste bitter. So well done. I'm encouraged by what I see. Just a couple of questions I'd like to ask, Chair. When it comes to some of the unauthorized expenditure that we're looking at condonation for, and the lack of a paper trail from the department to substantiate that unauthorized expenditure, I want to be taken into a bit of detail into when it arises. Surely there's an official that's lost the relevant documentation. Somebody's got to be responsible for losing invoices, remittances, whatever it is. What does the department actually do? Because it is a problem with Treasury, and they've raised it with the Finance Committee. So I'm just taking this opportunity to get a little bit more of an insight there. Chair, you know, I'm not a lawyer, but I cannot believe that there's no legal way that we can recover money that was paid incorrectly, fraudulently, or incompetently, or whatever the case is. You know, it just doesn't sit with me. And I'd like to know from the department, who or which legal team have you engaged and got some feedback on? Perhaps I'll tie that up with another question. Is this a unique problem to KwaZulu-Natal, or is it experienced in other provinces? And if so, perhaps there's a best practice we can look at. Has the department looked at any other provinces to see exactly how they deal with that? And then under the forensic investigations, there was I think it's resolution 157, if I can read my notes correctly. You did say that there is a day in So, yeah, Chair, my question around forensic investigations, and in the report, you said there's a delay. What is causing that delay? I was of the opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, that forensic investigations now fall under the Office of the Premier. Are these forensic investigations part of the OTP, or is it part of your department? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, colleagues, Honorable MEC, HOD and the department. Thanks for the presentations, Chief Director. 3 issues, Chair. We once had a situation here on this overspending of the department, where the department, you'll recall, reported to us that there were miscalculations at National Treasury. And at that meeting, I'm taking advantage of Finance Chairperson because he's with us here. We even went to the extent of requesting that the Finance Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee should be upset by engaging National, because the department was insisting that that money was money that was due to province, and it was a mistake at National. And if we can maybe ask the Finance Chairperson to report to us, because he was also very confident that he was going to get this money for us, because the department was really insisting that the miscalculations had happened at National. 2, Chair, whilst one is happy with the presentation, but this issue of staff debts, Chair, I'm not happy, because to me, it's like the goalpost is shifting. Let me take you back. You told us, department, that you are going to get this money back when you employed the services of the debt collectors. And you are very sure, you are very sure that you are going to get this money back. That did not work. You then told us some months later or a year or something like that, you told us, no, we are now going to stop it because we are engaging IT. That will stop abruptly. Nobody is going to be paid when they are out of the service. It's still continuing. At that time, we did not talk about teachers or whoever. We were talking about education staff. Today, they will come to us, they are telling us that no, it has decreased with schools. It's now with the other people. You call them what, pay what. We are talking about education here. You told us you were going to stop this thing because you had bought laptops for all the people who are supposed to tell you that so and so has exited the department. Why is it still continuing? You see? And today you come to tell us here that no, March, end of March, you'll have collected the money. I don't think so. If it doesn't happen, April, you are taking them to labor, what, it's not going to happen. HOD, don't tell us what you think we want to hear. Tell us what is possible, not what you think we want to hear. We have to stay with facts if we have to deal with these issues correctly. I think those are the last one, Chair, is on irregular expenditure, which they did not touch. I don't know if we are still going to proceed to it or we can comment on it. Because on irregular expenditure, which is also here, I've got 2 categories I'm very worried about there, where you are reporting categories, CFO. There is a big chunk on irregular expenditure on the category that you refer to as where is this category there? It's contracts, extension of contracts, and also disclosure. Those 2 categories. Why are we having so much on disclosure? It's very, very high, which I don't think it should be that high. And also on the extension of contracts, that one's a question. The other 2 were comments, and the other one I was taking the advantage of Finance Chair because he's with us here. Thanks, Chair.
The next one is
Thank you very much, Chair. It's an unexpected report, let me be honest. Into engihlupha ngayo mina, I understand that annual report is dealt with in November. A hearing of this nature is the follow-up on what was decided during the hearings in November. That's my understanding. That's why I will always avoid reopening things that are in the annual report. Because when I deal with the annual report, I make it a point that I deal with everything. You remember, how long do I take? Because I would want to uncover those things so that they get addressed. That's why then I have got a fewer questions that I want to pose. The first one is on what appeared in the budget speech by the former MEC for Finance, Honorable Dube Ncube, when the issue of the staff debt was highly profiled as an incentive that is going to assist you to address issues. I don't know why I see a lot of new information around that staff debt. I want to be frank. That's why I said when we dealt with the hearing with you that I don't anticipate that you are going to recover those debts. Because by then the most important information was that the debts are owed in the main by people who retired and resigned but continued to get paid. That's the rationale. That was the bulk of it. And now I hope that that has changed. That's why even in that engagement, I wanted to find out in order to do away with those debts because they are not recoverable. You know, I must be super there was no man. So I my quality is so I wanted just to check. But today I'm hearing the other category of this huge debt, over $500 million. Is that some of it comes from teachers who were involved? I don't know whether they're involved in NSNP. I don't understand and all the stuff and all the stuff. If I could be clarified on that one, if I heard very, very well. Then a question that I want to pose for my own understanding. You know, this thing of the education department, because I still have kids in schools, my own, I talk about my own kids, excluding the 4 months one that doesn't exist. I would want 2 and grandchildren, 4 of them for that matter. I would want to find out if the rumors that I get through investigation that some of these debts belong to apartheid departments, is that true? If I could be clarified there, because this information never surfaced. You know, sekufuna manje kube nathi ke thina ke manje singama-bush lawyers who dig information and arrive to the reality, you know, and it's not being mentioned, that particular one. That's why I wanted to check if it is true, so that I go the route of proposing and advising you outside that that thing is not recoverable. It should be removed. How to remove it, you know it, you are educated. I don't know it myself. You are talking to an ordinary MPL whose deployment is based on the lifting of hands by my members. I wanted just to be clarified on that one. If that allegation is true, where are the processes of dealing with it? Where to, ukuthi ubaba uNkosi uyithathaphi le nto lokho. This is what we get from investigations, because we are worried about what is happening in the critical department like education. Then the second one, I'm hearing another shift. Then I mentioned in passing. We used to be told that some of this debt is arising out of the late terminations. As a result of that, there was a tool that was developed in order to deal with that. I just wanted to find out, has that been done? Is it no more giving you problems? But on a criminal element in Israel, yeah, it's a criminal element. Where I'm hearing, I don't know where I heard it correctly, I'm hearing for the first time that in the department there are rogues who have debts in the department, but go to an extent when the government wants to recover its money, then the rogues threaten officials. What steps are taken in order to deal with that? We can't run a mafia state, you know. Uma ifundisa othisha bahamba bakweleta department bese bezosabisa mase kufanele bakhokhe. That's a mafia state. We're developing a parallel state. Mafias on one hand and the state on the other hand. If I could be clarified on that one, because I'm not hearing on the solution. It engihlupha mina ngifuni theory throughout. Kunezigebengu ezikweleta uhulumeni idepartment yethu sekufanele ukuthi kurecover imali bese ziyosabisa, angizwa ukuthi kuthathelwa ziphi inyathelo. These are the things that are annoying to me. Kunempezana kanjani sibe government department eranwa imafia ekweletayo omashonisa mase lokho bese bezosilokho njengalo muntu oshaya usidumo umlenze. We can't have that. And then we are not hearing about the solution. Amadela ngokubona asekwa education manje in another way of operation. That's the question that I wanted to, the questions that I want to raise on this debt issue. Then bese sizala kule irregular expenditure. I also want to be clarified because this thing called irregular expenditure, wanted wiped out the Scopa of KZN. But I'm hearing to the presenter who presented it very well, that X amount has been submitted for condonation and condoned, but the bulk of it is falling short at the determination stage where documentation are not found. Then and then as a result of that, there will be no consequence management. I would be educated as to whether the Treasury has shifted on its stand around the question of irregular expenditure where consequence management has not been applied, that it is not going to condone it, meaning that the 5 billion will remain in the books of the Department of Education unless there is another route that we are not speaking about of dealing with the 5 billion. Then the last thing that I want to, department fails to pay within 30 days due to cash blocking. And if we could, how do you think that you can pay when you know there is cash blocking, which we campaigned so much until it was put in place in order to deal with this problem? In order to deal with this problem, and if we I didn't hear the sense, how could you pay for the money that you don't have? Because when you are given 4-point-something billion rand spread for over 12 months, and then you decide to pay for 5 billion per month, what does it mean at the end? I don't know. I understand it. The last one, Oh, no. Khona into entsha futhi engizwayo la. Unauthorized expenditure as a result of the cabinet resolution. I've never heard about it. I've got a very deep memory. I can remember things as a primary, Mama 1970s when I was in the primary school, and then narrate it and all the stuff. I want to find out why the cabinet takes a decision mandating the department to continue, but don't back it with runs and cents. As a result of that, then our department is incurring the unauthorized expenditure. But angeni-ke kuma-law because I know the processes. How do you deal with that as Scopa member? You deal with it when the provincial treasurer has done deep analysis and then check a number of things. I will wait for that one. But nginewari yokuthi kuthiwa kuqashwa kodwa imali ayilandeli. Money does not follow the function. It's a major odd thing to me. Lokho ngifuna ukubeka nje ngibe honest. Angikuzwisisi kahle nokuthi ngiyaqala nokusho today kimi. Then having said all those questions for my own clarification, and then they were, as the chairperson of Scopa indicated, they were best summarized. Now, where is the deputy phone? Remarks MEC. These are the things that were profiled in the AG report and contained in the annual report. Then they were indicated and all the last. The last one, we want really to commend you for pursuing the SARS audit decision. I've always said SARS was out of order. That's why through my own friend, the former HOD, we used to discuss it at night until very late, not Dr. Nzam. Because the SARS is not correct. For you to pursue that matter and for SARS to compromise on that one, that is fine. Now we know 6.75 million rand is likely to come back to the people of KwaZulu-Natal and enjoy SARS. That's what we wanted to commend, because we have dealt with this thing for a very, very long period of time. So I think, Chairperson, this is what I wanted to just to get for clarity. Ngibengadila nento ezintsha ngabe ngaphuma kulezi ngoba nazo ngiyibona ukuthi ngathi ziyalenga. Uma nje kunemafia kodwa yikho asitshela ukuthi kanjani nayo akwazi, it can't be normal. Kimina it can't be normal. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Kosi. I'm shouting.
This is Hollywood.
Can I be protected, Chair, from yourself? No, I'm kidding. Greetings to you, Chairperson. My apologies for arriving late in your meeting. There was a bit of load shedding, so one was not able to stay in the meeting. But Chair, I think one must echo the words of some of the members to say that we firstly we'd like to appreciate the document presented to us and the responses, because for us as this committee, our job is to play an oversight on, is the department following through on the resolutions? Are you implementing? Are you trying? Are you giving us resolutions that we can hear that you can be able to implement? So we would like to really appreciate that. Secondly, MEC, thank you very much for your opening remarks. For me, it gave me a bit of comfort. Angehlisa nje nempilo engiza nayo. Yikho bese ngizifikele personally. Ngizola no CFO on this document. But the MEC in a way was able to assist me and to calm us down on some of the things that were raised by the AG and what is happening in the department. MEC, page 14 of the document speaks to resolution 14. I think most members have spoken to it. Please send appreciation here to the cabinet of KwaZulu-Natal for stopping that retrenchment that your department was planning to do. This KwaZulu-Natal government, it's all over the news. We are sitting on 41% of unemployment. And for us to come up with a decision, CFO and your team HOD, that you are planning to retrench 6,100 teachers, that was going to be a disaster for this province. And we must raise it sharply to say that it was not acceptable. Document, because it's not even something that we must speak to. It's really, really unacceptable that the first point that we speak of is retrenchment. In this climate, in this KZN that's been faced with so many challenges. So, hence I'm saying the remarks by the MEC really gave me a bit of comfort and send our appreciation. On page 20, Chair of your document by the department, irregular expenditure is still under investigation. In the same sentence, and you're saying warning letters have been issued where officials were found to be responsible. You see, such a document to come through Scopa, it's a problem. Because you must say we are investigating, and it must be a sentence on its own, the next one. It cannot be in one sentence. Because for me, it tells me, no. We will tell them what we want to hear. It's quite interesting as well. There's nothing that I enjoy when a department speaks about consequence management. It's what we encourage, it's what we want to see. Because we can't have officials who think that the public purse is for them to do as they please, and no one must hold them accountable. Hence, I'm encouraged by the words of the MEC again. And some of the words but we must correct that one. You can't investigate in the same breath. You found people, you've written letters. No, that one can't be it can't make sense to me. It just says, Chair, we are told what we want to hear. So document page 22, Chair. Ngihambe emazweni kamhlonishwa ke uNkosi ke lapho. Mina I want to go further and say sifuna ukubazi ke labantu abangafuni ukukhokha. It must be a resolution of this committee that says, I hate the fact that this document says the reluctant on the part of the employees to acknowledge the debt. How do you have a debt and then there's a reluctant? We are not negotiating with these people. They have been found to have been done something wrong. So there must be no reluctance. If we must suspend people, let's do so. Where some unions, he must assist us. For us to have a sit down with the unions and say, what sentence is this? This side, the department is trying to defend 6,000 and odd jobs. This side, you've got people who are reluctant to pay the people the money. What must the government do? We must make these things to be out there and for people to understand that there are things we're not going to accept. If you've been found guilty of contravening, pay up. Pay up. I understand the people that are outside the system. Nhlanja yakho umuntu was paid extra HOD. Wahola low mali. Mina ke I'm a child that was raised by the Department of Education. I know what teachers are paid. I know what their pensions. We must write off those ones. When someone is out of the system, is out of the system. But these ones that are inside the system, let's deal with those. And we don't want a Scopa to Scopa is the final. There's nothing beyond this legislature. So for us to receive a document that says lack of capacity in the district, HOD, we are not going to accept it. We must not be told that. You have doctors with PhDs, you've got a whole department full of lawyers. We've got, Department of Education cannot tell us they don't have capacity. It's scary. So we must clean up the document as much as we are happy with it, but there's another language that we can use. We can't say we don't have capacity to deal with theft. In the same document, we are talking about SIU reports that we must implement. Then it's a problem. How are you going to deal with these real thieves now that are causing they are taking serious money from the department, while we can't take back otherwise, Chair, uncovered by what members have raised. It's encouraged as well to HOD and CFO for you to speak to your counterparts at national level. This thing of so much money being taken out of the province by budget cuts. And I see somewhere in the document it's speaking to your computer systems that might not be assisting us in this regard, to be able to count the kids on the number of kids per school that is causing national to literally take away money from the province. MEC, assist us, speak to the cabinet, chairperson of finance, assist us, chairperson of Scopa. I think we need to fight. We can't continue to lose so much money. And what is shocking is when the National Portfolio Committee of Basic Education comes to KZN and they are shocked with the backlog of infrastructure. It's as if we are a parliament that does not understand who approves these budget cuts. It's them. As MPs at a national level, I was shocked with that statement. I really was like, I don't understand why must MPs of Department of Basic Education be shocked with the backlog of infrastructure in KZN. They are the ones who are approving these budget cuts in this province, and they've been cutting our budget of education and health for the 3 to 4 Lokuzana. It is quite unacceptable. And this burden cannot be left alone for the department to fight. We must all fight it. We must, Honorable KK, you must deal with it. Scopa Chair, we must be able to deal with it. We must ask the Speaker as well to assist us, to speak to it. Honorable Rogers, it's all our fight. Like we were fighting for that 1 billion. Sonke lapha shinga. Honorable we are still fighting for this money. Otherwise, Chair, thank you very much. With the responses, and we track them. The 83% achievement give us hope that you are doing what you are meant to do, which is teaching our children. But there's a lot that we need to do, and we must assist you to achieve more. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Beautiful. Before we hand over to the department to respond, I just have a few issues. I think colleagues have substantially covered the concerns, and we will be taking a presentation on the unauthorized expenditure after this. But the first one that I want to raise is this really, the department is telling us that they are cash strapped, and we can see that they are cash strapped. with the bulk of the budget going onto human resources as opposed to service delivery. It's something that's uneven, but the nature of the work done by the department is such that there's no alternative. It's education, health, the police services, they would all be the same. You require the warm bodies. So we understand that, which then makes it difficult to even consider retrenchment unless you can tell us that you've done a head count and you can afford to release 6,000 teachers. If you are saying that you have not done a head count where you've matched your personnel to learners, and then you went to the cabinet and said, we've got no money and we've got to retrench 6,000 educators, as Scopa, we'd want to show you the door very fast, because that then becomes a thumbsuck. So that then becomes a serious issue. And you know, this issue of the headcount is something year in, year out we have asked. I remember it was Advocate Masuku was here not so long ago, and we asked him, and he said something about it was in progress. We didn't actually get a figure, and we cited your sister department, the Department of Health, which was able to do a head count of the people in its employ, and said you must do that, because if you want funding, you must be able to accurately reflect that this is who we have on our books, this is where they are, this is how much they cost. So that 6,000, really, I am extremely suspicious about that, because I'd like you, but I'm sure you are going to, because you're doing your presentation on other unauthorized expenditure, you'll tell us how you arrived at it. And also, what was the reasoning that made you go to the cabinet and say, in order to contain our expenditure, we get rid of 6,000 teachers? Has there been any consultation with the stakeholders, whether it's the governing bodies, whether it's the unions, whether it's anyone? Or do you just go there in a panic and present cabinet with a fait accompli, which nobody can accept, especially in this climate? So really, we want serious answers here. Then, you know, when you're in a situation like this, I mean, I run a small household, but for me, if I'm running short, I look at where I can cut and where I can gain. Where's the money that's owing to me that I must get back? So your staff debt of 500 plus million, that's something that you should very seriously be working with. Now, my first question is, you've written off 70, well, you more or less are telling us that 71% of that is prescribed, right? I want to know who was supposed to be dealing with staff debt, who allowed it to get into the situation where 71% becomes prescribed. It means that for 3 years plus, you've not attempted to recoup that amount. So somebody must have been assigned that task, or some team. They've got to be held responsible, because now this province that is struggling for money has had to write off, or is going to have to write off, 3 million plus. Then you've got 153 million, which you tell us is still recoverable. Timeframes. Don't I hear about the project manager who you're considering appointing? Because by the time you finish considering, the 153 million is going to be prescribed. The second point is what Honorable Krele has raised. Why are you saying acknowledgement of debt? These people have left you. They're gone. That's what's happened. Most of them have resigned or retired. They're gone. There's no obligation to sign an acknowledgement of debt. You must just claim the money. It's like in your house. Somebody owes you money. You don't go to them and say, you know what, sign an acknowledgement of debt. Say, I want my money. So I think here, and you'll have the moral justification, absolutely. Because this is money that people haven't worked for, because they've left your service, right? They haven't earned, etc. So I think that's important, and that needs to be done. And you're talking about considering this project manager to deal with the recovery of the debt, staff debt. We'd like to get the timeframes. When? If you are doing this, because there are other options, and all I can say is it seems to me clutching at straws. Then the material misstatements, right, around the NSNP around learner transport. Again, you're dealing with public money and your purse is in a bad way. So every cent counts, every learner counts. So if you are feeding 5,000 learners, you must know that's the amount you pay. If you're feeding 4,500, you can't pay for 5,000. So there's got to be proper records, because the records must equal to, say colleagues, income and output, or what input and outcomes. The amount of money you put in must match the benefit of the service delivered. Same with the learner transport. I can see what you're saying, and you're fortunate that they've agreed to it. Number of schools serviced as opposed to number of learners. But again, we need to look at that, because we've been to schools where the number of learners is very low. Very low. And if you're doing this global thing of saying you're servicing X number of schools, if school A has 50 learners and school B has 500, there should be a difference in what you're allocating. So saying number of schools may not be the best option, especially when you're trying to catch every cent. So I think within the department, it's something that you need to observe with rigor. Then, in terms of your irregular expenditure, Resolution 145, relating to local content. Honorable MEC, this is an issue I think you need to chase. Local content is, these regulations say that any contract awarded must have 30% local content. In other words, local people, local goods, local procurement. If the department has contravened that, and it has, it's not the first time. This has happened in the past. And it goes against Black economic empowerment. It goes against economic transformation. We can't allow this. And Honorable MEC, I know this is a cause close to your heart, so I know you will chase this up, and we'll thank you for that. Then the payment in 30 days. I'm glad that the department has been able to come up with a set of procedures, slide 19. But what is missing is who is responsible. Now we're talking about accountability, right? It says invoice must be stamped, whatever, but who does it? And who's responsible? So we'd like to hear about that. In terms of the new debts around staff debt, we note the reduction by 7 million, but it's 7 million too much when you have no money. 7 million is 7 million. To a person, it can get you many things. It can get you more educators, right? And you're saying that in order to address this, you're talking about e-submission. And I'm quoting slide 24, or any convenient method. That's too loose. Firstly, have you got an electronic system? Something being spoken about for a long time. And what would any convenient method be? If it's the same methods that you've been using up to now, they failed. That's how the staff debt goes up. Then in terms of, the material, and that, by the way, is a material irregularity. So it's a very serious thing. It's no longer just a finding of the AG. It's something where eventually, if it's not addressed, there will be charges laid in terms of the new Public Audit Act. Then, Chairperson, sorry about this. Then I want to also say, don't rely on goodwill. SARS has fined you, and SARS is, look, they've raised a lot of money for the national fiscus to pay for things in the country, right? So we're very glad about that, but this is how they get the money. They chase those who don't do what they're supposed to do in relation to their taxes. So here, the department has not paid PAYE on time, and they fined you. What makes you think that they're going to give you a good decision and reverse it? Highly unlikely, because you've done the wrong thing. You haven't paid on time, regardless of what you say. I mean, all of us know with SARS, that's what's going to happen. You pay. That's it, and it's for the public good. So I'd like to know then, who was responsible? Because there must be some consequences there. It's cost the department money. And then your critical posts, we will communicate with you about the updates, because I think the department needs all posts to be filled. In terms of I think the big thing here, oh yes, and then the one other matter is there was an expenditure in Department of Social Development an under expenditure of around 38.8 million for the ECD. And they informed us that that has been transferred to education because education now deals with that. This money was to be used on the creation of jobs. The Presidential Work Employment Initiative, has that happened? Has the 38.8 million been utilized for that purpose? That's job creation. So not writing of 6,000 jobs, creating jobs to the value of 38.8 million. Has it happened? So those are some of the points I want to make. I think the rest have been covered by colleagues. You can respond. All colleagues, do you want the presentation on unauthorized expenditure first? Tami? Presentation first. Okay? Let me know. Same to you. Honorable Kaula?
Because they've already asked questions, maybe they should respond.
Okay, let's take the response then, the presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Let me start by thanking all the honorable members for the questions, which I believe they are assisting us as this department to be on our toes and account, which I feel it's critical that we do. Let me address the political one for the cabinet resolution, then the HOD will come in administratively. Let me start by saying for the cabinet to allow us to keep the educators was a good decision, of which we went to them hoping that they are going to do it. But the reason why it finds itself here, it's because we're trying to lobby the finance chairperson and the Scopa chairperson and all the members to go back on our behalf and appeal to Treasury to fund us for these posts. If I can give the explanation, the issue here is, as the department, we need 90,000 educators, and we can afford 85 educators. So when we went to the cabinet, we explained that you are on the verge if they can take out this 5,000. We persuaded the cabinet to give us the go ahead in terms of maintaining the 90,000 posts. And the unfortunate part is I don't think we had a choice, because every class and every learner should have an educator in front of him or her. So hence the cabinet took the best decision to say that we maintain the 90,000. In fact, it's something which happened even in 2022, 2021, when they were discussing the PPN issues. They had to keep them. But the challenge is there is no funding for that, which comes back to haunt us as the department. Thank you. I hope my explanation is clear. We appreciate what the cabinet did for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and honorable members. We also want to appreciate the comments and the questions. I think the MEC has dealt with that issue of unauthorized expenditure. In fact, the presentation that we did to cabinet will show that the retention of 90,057 posts was our recommendation. That was our recommendation to cabinet. But part of the discussion, of course, leading to that, we were saying to cabinet, look, this is the number of posts that we have currently, 90,057. But because of budget cuts, 5,000 of them are unfunded. But when it comes to what are you recommending to cabinet, our recommendation was simple. We want to cabinet to allow us to maintain the number of posts that we have. you know. And we even explained to them that, look, actually we should be needing more. Simply because we are building new schools, for example. I mean, people would ask, when we build a school like Mandam Tech School of Excellence, like the Anton Lambert, where do you get teachers if your post basket remains at 90,057? But we're not even saying to cabinet increase the number of teachers. Our recommendation was simple: allow us to maintain this. And the reason why we are saying cabinet must support us in that was this: in terms of the policy, when you declare the number of posts, when the MEC declares the number of posts, the MEC must look at what she can afford. In order for us then to know that we have the support of our own cabinet, we had to present facts as they are. That this is the number of posts we can afford, but our recommendation is that we retain the number. It would really be strange for us, knowing the nature of our work, to go there and say, please, allow us to reduce the number. We may have not put it well in this presentation, and that we admit. But let me deal with some of the questions that my colleagues will deal with the others. The question of unauthorized expenditure, I think, has been explained. I will deal with the question of staff debt. Indeed, it is true that we appointed the debt collectors to assist us. And in the process of that, they encountered a number of things, because debt collectors were for out-of-service people who are no longer working for the department. The people who are still in service, we are collecting ourselves. And we don't have a problem of acknowledgement of debt or non-acknowledgement of debt. If you are still in service, all we do, and that's the law that provides that, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, we ask you, we tell you that you owe us, and we agree with you on the terms in which you will pay the amount. Because remember, you can't deduct from an employee's salary, and leave them with nothing, not even being able to go to work. That's the only thing we negotiate are the payment terms. It's not whether you owe us or not. The problem of acknowledgement of debt arises only with people who are exiting the system, who, when they exit, we realize that, look, you were overpaid in a particular month, or you had leave without pay that is still owing from you, because we paid you when you were on leave that was subsequently not approved by the health risk manager. Then it is at that, and the person is about to exit. So, and that's when they then see an opportunity of not signing the acknowledgement of debt, simply because the pension laws don't allow us to take money from their pension, because that's what, that's our only resort now, because the person is leaving, is to take the money from and the pension laws don't allow us that, unless the person has acknowledged that. And it is true that, the dice is loaded in their favor in that situation, because they are about to leave, and they know that if they leave without signing this, you are not going to get the money from their pension, because GPAF will refuse to deduct the money and pay it back to the department. But we are doing something in relation to that. What we're doing in relation to that is, when you are still in service, and you are paying a particular debt, when you are still in service, we tell you that this debt, if you leave service and you haven't paid it off, we will recover it from your pension. If you leave service and you are still, and you are still owing, instead of waiting until you are on the eve of your departure and then we ask you to sign, we we cause you to sign now before you, 5 years before you leave, that because you are paying this debt, should you resign, for example, this debt will be recovered from your pension. Therefore, when you resign, we won't need any acknowledgement, because that was an agreement while you were still in service. And that is how we're trying to deal with these people who on the verge of departure refuse to sign. The bulk of the debt, Honorable Chair, you are correct. We've analyzed it. It's an old debt. The debt for some employees is as old as when there were still various, departments of everything. When there was amalgamation, some people came with debts already, and then they retired, while having not paid the money, and that is why some of the debt is well over 3 years. When we say 3 years plus, you will actually find that it's not just 4 years. Then no, some of it is way older than that. So it's when our debt collectors started the process, that's one of the problems that they encountered, because some of the debtors were dead, some of the debtors couldn't be traced, because one of the things that has to be understood is that when you are a teacher, you may be teaching in Nongoma, and you may have given your address as this and that school in Nongoma. When you retire, you go back to where you come from, actually. And we might not then know your new address. We only know your address when you were working in KwaMashu. But now that you have retired, you have gone to live in Harrismith, where you originally came from, or Matatiel, where you originally came from. And the debt collectors then had struggled even to locate these people. And hence the rate of collection from out of service people was very low. On e-submissions and other electronic tools that we're talking about, those were not aimed at out of service people. Those were aimed at ensuring that we prevent new debt, because we had realized that new debt comes because of people whose termination is processed 3 months after they have left, 4 months, 5 months after they have left. And the explanation was always that, the schools are too far from circuit and the process of submitting documents takes too long. Then we said, look, for the documents to reach the district on the same day as the resignation, we must develop this system. And it is actually beginning to show that on new debt side arising out of late terminations, we seem to be winning the battle there. The PYEI is a new thing that is a new challenge really that came about. It's not NSNP. It's PY, the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative. That's the new challenge that Mrs. Mlaba was reporting about. It's these young people that we recruit, and we recruit thousands in KZN. Last time we had about 58,000 recruited to work. Now, because of a particular decision which we took a decision that for regularity of payment and for certainty of payment in terms of amounts and time of payment, we will pay them through PESA. Other provinces did it differently. They would pay the school and the school would pay them. They have their own problems. We also started off doing it like that. And the honorable members would recall, even maybe from their own constituencies, the outcry that was there where these young men and women were saying, I'm supposed to be earning 3,500 rand and the principal just gave me 800 rand. Or I have not been paid, all those things, and I'm sure the honorable members will remember the outcry that was there. Or I was not paid this month and everybody else was paid. Those were things that were receiving. Then in the next round, we then said, look, in order for these young men and women not to go through that, let's pay them through PESA. With that, we were taking the risk in order to just, do justice. But we're taking the risk because the risk here is, these young men and women, it can be so fluid, because he's here today. He then gets a job to start on Monday. He just leaves. And the salary on PESAL is on the run. So he gets paid one more month. And you think, well, it's one person, but then there's two, there's three, there's 1,000, there's 5,000 who do that. Then the debt now is a lot more that combined. And it's people who they are so fluid in terms of who is here today, because immediately they leave, we have said to schools, employ another one, give that opportunity to another one. In the meantime, the one who has left is paid. That's a new problem, but we are dealing with it because all it requires really is for our principals to be strict in terms of timelessly informing us that it's no longer Mr. Lal Ramaran who's a PYEI employee here, but it's now Ms. Hatted. Then we can process that. But it's a new set of debts. Some of the debts, of course, would be our interns and so on. But for our people on the establishment, or your teachers, I think we are winning the battle there. Where if a person has resigned or retired, we stop the salary immediately. Even while we're still processing their pension and so on, we stop the salary immediately. It's those new challenges that are coming up, like this one of PYEI that we are dealing with. But we're not throwing our hands in the air and saying it's one. I think that can be done. I think we will win this one as well because there are actions that we're taking to do this. I think Cyprus has actually agreed with us, but it was unfair for them to be penalizing us for that situation, and it's unusual for them to actually agree on such issues. Sorry? Yeah, the first step was for them to agree. Yes. Then of course the discussions are still the money will be coming to us. Yeah. I think I've done some of the questions that I wanted to do, or the question of pensions and so on, people being paid. Is it happening in all the problems? Of course, the problem whether you can take from pension is the pension laws of the country. And it affects every province. You can't deduct from somebody's pension unless they've given consent to do that, and that's the chance that they are taking in refusing to actually sign acknowledgement of debt. Let me then hand over to the CFO and Mrs. Mlaba to deal with those questions that deal with irregular and unauthorized expenditure, irregular expenditure in particular.
Thank you, Chair, honorable members. I think in responding to Honorable Paula's comment, Honorable Chair, I think that is what I wanted to say previously, that when the National Treasury cut us, they cut us deeper than we should have cut us. And we have proved to them that they, instead of just cutting us in terms of the inflationary wage adjustment, they went deeper in the first year by 565 million rand. In the second year by 1.3 billion rand, that is this current year. And on top of that, Chair and honorable members, and the HOD of Treasury will bear fruit to this, and she agreed that the calculation that they have now implemented on our wage agreement, the 3% and the 1.5% pension fund, they shortchanged us by 268 million. Now, if you look at these shortages, Chair, we will be smiling and we would have been comfortably managing the shortfall that we are indicating of 693 million rand for this year, and even for last year for 719 million rand. We would have been, not retrenched anyone, Honorable Chair. We wouldn't have. We weren't thinking of retrenchment. I must say, we are coping with the 86,208 educators as far as we can, but it is still a lot of pressure because we need 90,000 teachers to be fully fledged education department. And you'll see that in terms of as we go on, schools will be making comments regarding the teacher in the classroom. The other issue is, Honorable Chair, I want to go straight into the issue that is going to be very, conflicting in terms of the 38 million rand from DSD. The rollover was requested by DSD and National DSD, and they subsequently received the 38 million rands, which Treasury passed on to DSD, and because we have now taken over the function, the money was during budget adjustment given to Department of Education. Subsequently, we tried to find out who the beneficiaries were of this 38 million rand. And Madam Chair, I have to give the committee a detailed report on how this is unfolding, because we are really not getting any joy from National DSD, from National Treasury, and from our departmental officials at DSD on who the beneficiaries are. The response we got from National was that, or from DSD, was that they were a consultant firm that was appointed to identify the beneficiaries. And they would give us the source documentation and the ID numbers and be able, so we'll be able to transfer the money to those NPOs where these beneficiaries are actually working or have been placed. Now, that is the challenge that we are having, and we have been communicating with National Department, having meetings with them. We have analyzed the database, but we are getting no joy. And in terms of the PFMA, Honorable Chair, it's possible that we're going to surrender that money, because we cannot have an audit query where we are going to pay beneficiaries we don't know, that there's no source documentation, and we have no real proof that that person will really, or should supposed to, or would have got that stimulus package as been promised, I think about 3 years ago or 4 years ago. So I just needed to clear that, Chair, because you will get in the financial statements, the department surrendering money, which it is really not our doing, because we now have also asked National if we can use the money on other pressures on ECD, and National has said no, we need to just return the money if we cannot find the correct beneficiary. So on that, Chair, I must move on to the issue on irregular expenditure. I think Honorable Kaula was referring to the huge amounts on extension of contracts. And I must say that the extension of contracts was due to above the 15% deviation in terms of the court order that we had, where we had to provide services of security, cleaning, etc. So that we are asking or requesting Treasury to condone. The conflict of disclosure, that is from persons doing business with the department. It's an old one. Honorable Chair and members, I must indicate that irregular expenditure is also being analyzed from 2011. So therefore, it is really a struggle to now get documentation, as Honorable Rogers was asking, why can't you find the documentation for the irregular expenditure? But nevertheless, we are still looking for ways and means where we can pinpoint who was responsible for these kind of irregular expenditure in terms of the consequence management to be implemented. The issue, Honorable Chair, in terms of I think all the issues around consequence management, I concur with Honorable Chair that people or staff that is responsible for irregular expenditure, payment over 30 days, non-implementation of local content, and the issue of economic transformation, we are definitely going to impose consequence management on those who are not following these rules and regulations. I think in terms of the headcount, around issue of headcount, Mrs. Mlaba has got some information. We have done a headcount, Honorable Chair, and we have done it with Treasury. And Treasury has a report on the headcount. And I must indicate that on our PESEL system, we have a clear information on the establishment in terms of how many people we have, the categories of people we have, etc. Mrs. Mlaba, you want to read out our staff establishment?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Scopa. The head count, we have presented it on slide 11 under unauthorized expenditure, which is part of our presentation that we're going to go to. But what we wanted to highlight is that even though we have a post-establishment of 90,000, we have actually looked at the benchmark. What is it that we'll be comfortable with, which is 89,000 posts. Currently, on a month-to-month basis, we are tracking and monitoring where we are and where the shortfalls are actually at. So the response, Chair, is that we do have a head count. We know exactly where these categories, the shortages are. With the educators, we're sitting at 4,477, the specialists 859. So the analysis has been done on what is actually on the ground and where we want to get to. Currently, we're sitting at 88,000, which is above what we have calculated that we can afford, which was 85,508. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I think you can direct us to go to the next presentation.
Okay, Honorable Rogers, briskly, right? Because the next one is on unauthorized. Okay, thanks, Claire.
Two follow-up questions. One was on the forensic investigations. I don't think I heard the reason for the slow turnaround, whether it's departmental forensic investigations or the Premier's office. And the other one is a suggestion. If somebody leaves your employ and they owe you money, I fully understand legislation doesn't allow you to take it off pension. But surely you can take civil action and go and attach a fridge, a stove, a car, furniture, whatever. People generally pay very quickly when you want to take their furniture.
Yeah. On forensic. Yes. And I think when we're talking about the turnaround in relation to some of the investigations and the capacity, we're talking about warm bodies to do those investigations departmentally. Yes. That's what we're talking about. But also there are investigations, of course, that are done at the level of the Office of the Premier and at the level of Treasury. And after doing all those investigations, they bring the reports back to us for us to process. And that's where the question of capacity sometimes arises, where when you don't have warm bodies to actually deal with even the reports that have actually come. And that's as a result of the fact that every cent we have, we tend to channel it first to the classroom. We want to get teachers. And therefore, your staff in labor relations, admin staff in general, we tend not to fill posts when they arise. And that's where really we have capacity issues because of the vacant posts that we have. Thank you.
Honorable Rogers, covered? Okay. Okay, now we put that as a recommendation to say that this issue of acknowledgement of debt of ex-employees is a waste of time. Okay, the other one we are concerned, but we won't take it any further now, is the possibility that now the CFO actually mentioned of returning the 38 million from DST. I don't think, when you're saying there's no money, that's the kind of thing you can't allow. So I think Chairperson of Finance, I think we'll get those things pursued, I hope. Let me hand over, well, it has to be, they're going to have to account for budget hearings. Let me hand over for the presentation on the unauthorized expenditure.
Mrs. Mlaba can continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. The unauthorized expenditure presentation is responding to the report that was requested on the detailed explanation and reasons for over expenditure and the steps that the department is taking and whether what we've done to implement to make sure that it does not recur. I can go to page 4. From page 4, Chair, we're talking to the 235 million for 2019-2020, and the steps that we have taken to comply is it applies across the board from 2019 to date, where we have monthly IYM, which is in-year monitoring, to track the expenditure and make sure that we apply for environments where we see that some line items are projecting to overspend, and we do in a budget adjustment, which are approved by Treasury. The reasons mainly for 2019-2020 were more related to COVID expenditure, which was very much unpredictable. We had a lot of changes that we had made to that budget. There is no disciplinary steps that have been taken, as the unauthorized expenditure is mainly related to the component of compensation of employees. 2020-21, the 6 million over expenditure, the steps we've taken there is that they continue with the in-year monitoring and just making sure that we understand when we're approaching that over expenditure on the programs and make the environment. And the steps taken is really to budget, to monitor the budget especially when it comes to February, close to the financial year end, where we monitor the expenditure on a daily basis to make sure that we do not overspend where possible. Same with the 2021-2022, we just citing what the department has done in terms of approaching the different structures with the assistance of showing what the impact is on the net provision of those funds. And we have taken it to Cabinet, Mincombat, and to the Rekgotla. We still have not received a positive outcome on that. We are just explaining from page 7 on what we've already alluded to. Maybe if I can just go to number 4, bullet number 4, which shows the unauthorized expenditure of 961 million over the last 3 years when the severe budget cuts, started coming through. And this has resulted in an increase of an overdraft that we have as a department of 965 million. It is going to be, we're projecting an increase to 1.92 billion over the MTF. And the increase in budget really does not assist us because it doesn't inject cash into our bank account and does not reduce the bank overdraft. Therefore, the only condonation by Scopa will actually allow us to receive the cash to reduce the overdraft. We further go and state what is the impact of this insufficient cash flow on our operations. The limit in cash flow we have alluded to non-payment of suppliers. The department is unable to transfer to schools on the legislated times, which is May and October, with basic and LTSM, which actually makes schools struggle throughout then to actually pay their own domestic accounts and the running of the schools in general. The PAYE project, which we have indicated that it runs for 5 months, and we cannot release those monies on time. In fact, we release those monies on time because they run through PESAL, but then we have to find it somewhere else to make up for the monies that go to PAYE. So the impact of this, it results to the non-payment of suppliers, the security cleaning of and domestic accounts are compromised because we find in schools and maybe at district offices where we have not paid for these services that they actually leave the premises until they receive the payment. It interrupts teaching and learning. We've seen a case where municipalities are switching off services, electricity and water, and they're targeting the district offices, so it interrupts teaching and learning, the non-payment. The procurement of LTSM is compromised through delay. We've mentioned the transfers to schools is not done on time. The maintenance of this infrastructure is also compromised. We also have staff struggling because they do not have the tools of trade. We have just awarded or distributed laptops to staff, and some of those laptops that were replaced were like 10 years old already. So it actually impacts on the service delivery when staff do not have the proper tools of trade. The unaffordability of educators, especially on special schools, is also a pain point, which makes these schools very non-functional. A non-implementation of qualified ECD practitioners at this required budgets to actually move them from what they are currently earning to what they are supposed to earn. We've limited the traveling, which impacts on the monitoring of the schools. We've limited overtime and hotel booking. The staff shortages that is impacted is where we cannot actually have the delegations of authority implemented fully, which results in irregular expenditure, where we find that when we are being audited, we find that we do not have enough home bodies to actually segregate the duties. SETA services are interrupted when we don't pay SETA, and it affects the functioning of our email and desktop support. Training programs are not fully implemented as per the approved business plan. The last slide, Chair, is that we've spoken to on the headcount, where we are indicating that of the establishment of 107, which is approved, the benchmark is 103, which we could be comfortable with, but due to budget constraint, we are only able to fund 101, 297. In fact, we're not even able to find, as a result, we see the irregular expenditure and the unauthorized expenditure. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, open for discussion. Honorable Rogers, Honorable Zulu, Honorable Nkosi.
Thanks, Chair. Just a simple question. The current overdraft, what is your monthly service of interest on that? You should have a rough figure in your head. And was it budgeted for? If not, surely it's going to incur fruitless and wasteful expenditure.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings to your good self. Greetings to the Honorable MEC. To a certain extent covered. However, Chair, my clarity-seeking question is on the ECD, spending on ECD. I need to be clarified on that one if they have exhausted, because from the previous report by CFO, if I'm not mistaken, he indicated that there are some challenges on the issue of beneficiaries, whom we may say, has to do with izibongi. Our beneficiaries, but then the spending is exhausted. If it's a clarity in that particular aspect. Otherwise, see presentation.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chairperson. No, I will make the first comment on the issue of 38 million rand of the conditional grant of ECD. We know was a conditional grant of 80-something million, which was directly coming from the national. I hope my memory is serving me right. You know, the issue is, if it is a conditional grant, you cannot disperse it anyhow, because it has got strings attached. That's what is a reality. That's why I understand the CFO when he speaks about the surrendering. Because if it is a conditional grant, you can't use it for any other purpose. So that's the first thing, unless there are other routes that I'm not aware of. So that's why I understood, and I didn't have a stress when he speaks about surrendering. You know, that's the first part that I wanted just to indicate. The second part is on this 961. Personally, I'm not prepared to interact on that one, because at the moment I have been. No, did I say something else rather than 961 million rand? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The accumulative unauthorized expenditure. There is one thing that I know, is that the Treasury has made a presentation to Scopa. This is what I know. I'm not doubting it. Because there's something poop. AK nje. When poop that could be the problem. I'm aware of a particular amount, but I am not talking about it because I haven't got the briefing from the Treasury, including this unauthorized expenditure of 917. Is it? Oh, no, 719 point something. I don't know. I haven't. The briefing I'm talking about is to find out as to whether it is dealt with in terms of the budget that is going to be tabled next week. But before I sleep tonight, I will be having, at least for my own consumption, and what is it and all that. I know about the 2 financial years prior to that, but the projected one of the current financial year, I'm not aware of. So that's what I wanted just to make a comment on. And then I can't, no, Mapolo, I have to pose it to you, a specific question. When our government agreed to retain the staff, you know my position over years. You were on the other side of the table, I was on the other side. Even from Mandela's time, we drew a red line. No educator shall be retrenched in South Africa. We told Mandela in the face, the most popular man in the world, we told him in the face as trade unionist. And we continued telling those who came after him that we have got nothing to do with that particular thing. We propose other avenues the last thing, Mapoloba, that I want to raise is this one of the Treasury ngalesikhathi niyocela, was it any request to it to go and consider this so that we help MEC Fraser or to the campaign? And it's a fair campaign. Yeah, it's a fair campaign. I'm hearing for the first time. And all the stuff. So that we are on your side, the Fraser. Officials, was there any instruction to Treasury? I know why I'm asking that silly question. Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Okay. Look, I just want to say something here, right? Before we hand over to the department. One, obviously, in terms of what we are being told, right? Their needs are greater than the money that they have. What we haven't heard is what is the projected overdraft for 22-23, right? Because any decision, and we as Scopa have to make a decision in terms of authorization or non-authorization or whatever, or first charge in relation to the unauthorized expenditure up to 21-22. But it will have to be taken, factoring in the needs as have been expressed here, the projected unauthorized expenditure for the incoming financial year and going forward for the future. Those are the things we'll have to consider. So it's not a light decision, and a decision that would have to be taken to ensure that you minimize impact, right? Whilst conforming to the legislative provisions. I'm saying this so that we are all aware of this thing, members, right? But you've got to be like Solomon. You've got to work out how you balance out things, because we don't want service delivery, the children in the province to suffer, neither do we want to contravene provisions that are in legislation. So it's that balancing act that we have to do. And I think that we should also be, Treasury has put in the initial proposal a first charge over 3 years, right, that they've got there. But I think it's something we need to take back to them to say, look at it and tell us whether, given this current climate of 22-23, where clearly there's going to be an over expenditure again, we can see it, right? Should we look at, is it possible to maybe even look at a deferment of a first charge to maybe a year later when things might change? I'm not certain, or something like that. But let's ask Treasury. And I'm saying we'll just mandate and our legal advisors to come up with some formulation and where we address all the concerns. But having said that, Honorable MEC, and we are definitely not unsympathetic, and a decision we take is not going to be something that's going to retrench people or deny kids the opportunity of an educator. The department is a habitual offender, right, with unauthorized expenditure. You've inherited it, the MEC before you inherited it, and the one before that inherited it. This is what has happened. We've always had this thing where they spend more than they have. And there have been various techniques that have been used. Accruals, you know. I remember in Newcastle, how many years ago was it, Honorable Nkosi, where we won them? The more you create accruals, the less budget you're going to have on service delivery. That was many years ago, right? So we want to put that on the table as well, to say that there has to be more rigor. Every cent has to count. I've been looking at the implications on the presentation of budget cuts, etc. Right? Some of the things you're going to have to trim. Fortunately, we're living in an age, you know, COVID, I'll never say was fortunate, but we learned some lessons where you can cut costs on traveling, subsistence, accommodation, etc. I think your department is going to have to put those things into practice. As you know, for some of the nice to haves, maybe trim there and take those funds and divert them. Those are things you're going to have to do even more, right? We had a lot in the COVID period of savings, right? That, you know, came up during the COVID period because we were not functioning as we were, which is not to say the department becomes dysfunctional, but just become a bit creative and maybe invest your resources in using more of the technology, those kinds of things, rather than the old-fashioned ways, which actually consume human resources and money. But I think that's the thing. That's the point that I wanted to make. But certainly the situation cannot carry on, right? We're going to have to also take stock. And I think provincially, the Treasury will have to look at it. We have two big departments whom we can't slash. That's education and health, because they provide huge. And then, of course, you've got transport and social development who have their own pressures. So we need to look at that. We also need to factor in the issue of the provincial fiscus as a whole, so that you don't put the strain. Because what is being said here is the funds have to be made available to you from where? That is the question. Provincial resources are at a low. So when we say funds have to become available, we're going to have to look at things creatively, but also sympathetically, to ensure that things don't come to a standstill. All right, let's hand over to the department. I think now it'll just be short responses. I think what we need is a full report, and Chairperson of Finance is here, a full report from Treasury about the status quo, right? So that when you get that and you look at it, then you know what you're talking about, and you talk about apples, pears, and oranges.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chair. I will ask the HOD to respond, but okay, I'll come after him.
Thank you very much, Chair and MEC and honorable members. I think I will just respond to the one question by Honorable Nkosi, which was whether when we made a presentation to Treasury and our recommendation to retain the 90,057 posts was endorsed by the provincial EXCO, whether then there was an instruction to Treasury. And you know, when we made that presentation, we had made the same presentation to Mini Compact before. Yes, and the resolution, because we've done it for 2 financial years, not just, you know, in September last year we did it with the UNEC, but before that, in September of 2021, we had gone again to cabinet to say the same thing, to say, look, there's this number of posts that we can afford, but retrenchment is impossible in a department like ours. Therefore, we recommend that we retain. Don't increase, retain. The resolution in that meeting of 2021 was that, yes, retain. Subsequent to this, the efforts will be made to solicit assistance of National Treasury. I do remember that the Honorable Premier then, you know, summarized it to say that they would actually try and meet even the Minister of Finance then to make our plight known and to see if they could encounter assistance at the level of National Treasury. The same thing happened in 2022 when we made this presentation asking to retain the number. Cabinet endorsed our recommendation that we retain the number, and then said that you know, collectively, government must look at ways in which a department such as ours can be assisted, you know, with this problem. But we were also instructed to improve our own efficiencies internally. You know, things like debt management, which we are dealing with. Things like you know, surplus educators, which we are dealing with. You know, I mean, even if you were to look at the figures that we have, and if you ask yourself, for example, we have a basket of 90,000 posts. But at a particular point now, you are saying, okay, but in the system now you have 88,000. What happens with the 2,000? It's because that 90,057 includes our capacity to be able to substitute people when they are sick and so on and so on. Now, what we've done there, when there's an educator who's sick, we don't provide a substitute unless there's no other way. You know, what we do, we say the school must first look at within itself whether it can redistribute the work it has. But it's not always possible. There are situations where the teacher on maternity leave is the only one who teaches mathematics and no one else here. You can't distribute the work to the other one. Then in that situation, we provide the substitute. We also look at the school that, look, somebody is on maternity leave, but you have a surplus educator anyway in this school. So we're not going to give you a replacement because you actually have a surplus educator. And in some cases, we use surplus educators to actually, you know, to fill in for those educators those are the innovative ways that we've come with. Besides that, we've also been very strict on redeployment of surplus educators. I mean, so strict that I think that problem is becoming where an educator will refuse, for example, to move. from one school to another. That problem, we're dealing with it decisively. I think last year or the year before, there was even a situation where we terminated teachers who were refusing to be redeployed. Of course, we re-employed them. We re-employed them, but the message that were sent there has meant that people now take us seriously when we say, we don't want you to lose your job, but the enrollment has dropped. You move to that school because that school needs you. We don't have money to appoint a new teacher there while you are surplus in your own school here because the enrollment has dropped. So if you don't want to go, we will act. And our action last year really has assisted because we get less resistance now because we don't do it also, this redeployment, we don't do it without any empathy or sympathy. We don't say you will now leave your school here in KwaMashu and go to Mkuze. That's not what we do. Because we've got that sympathy and that people have families and so on. We try everything to redeploy you within an area that's affordable for you to do. Those are things that we were instructed to do, and those are things that we are doing now to ensure that we improve our own efficiencies. We still have gaps, but all the time we're working on improving our own inefficiencies. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The last one from me is to appeal to honorable members to consider what Honorable Nkosi said in connection with the debts that are not traceable. I think that one will assist. He said something very interesting. Something like maybe we can scrap them if it's legal, but I'm not sure because I'm not a guru when it comes to finance matters. But I'm appealing to your good selves that you consider what he said. We are having another challenge of special schools. I think that one is even worse. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you,
Interest rate?
Honorable Rogers. The interest is only being charged when the provincial bank account is overdrawn. So the provincial bank is the holder of the total. Only when they are into overdraft, then the interest is kicked in. So we don't pay any interest. That's how it operates in KZN, I think. And Chair, I just want to remind Chair that I know Chair keeps saying about the unauthorized expenditure that we incurred in the previous years, but I must remind Chair, and my colleague here is reminding me that we took away 860 million rands from infrastructure equitable share to fund COE to stop the unauthorized expenditure in the following years. But it's come to haunt us again. So we in a circle, and unfortunately infrastructure is also suffering in terms of the equitable share. We can only spend the conditional grant of infrastructure now. We can't even spend the equitable share. Thank you.
No, thanks. I think we are covered. In terms of the infrastructure, yes, the province has been in the situation for many years now. You'll recall that health put its infrastructure development program on slowdown. That's how Pixley's Akasema Hospital came up slowly, but it did come. So there is that, and there's obviously the give and take. And I think we take all these things into account when we look at how we're going forward. Honorable MEC, in terms of the prescribed debt, that's not with Scopa. That's with your department and Treasury. You've got to get your people to look at it. They've got to provide suitable explanations as to why it has to be prescribed, and then it gets prescribed. One of it is the time period. The other one could be whatever. But it's the department, and thus far, in terms of the report, it's about 300 million. Okay, so colleagues, I think we'll also communicate with Treasury to give us a proposal as to how we frame, because I think we are agreeing that we can't impose, sudden cuts on this department. We'll have to look at how it's done within the framework of the law and how we absolutely minimize a negative impact, because we don't want that. I think we're all in agreement with that. So we'll get them to give us something that's you can live with, maybe not be happy about, but we can all live with. Okay, and I think we'll leave it at that. All right, MEC, I think you've had to hit the ground running. It's a baptism of fire for you. I can see the frown lines are coming in, but goes with the turf. Thank you very much to you and your team. We know it's been a tough session, but unfortunately, rands and cents always are. But we'll work together. That's how we are. All right. Thank you very much. Members, we've got a hearing tomorrow. It's virtual, right? It's at 12 o'clock. Okay, so I think it has been sent to you. Thank you, everyone. There is lunch. Kabo, where? In the dining hall, down there somewhere.